Welcome to Forza1 North. I'm Morgan Coberly, the director here. We're really excited about our 8th season. We're one of 3 locations in Southern California, and we are currently the biggest club in Southern California. Our site alone will have 40 teams this year. Although last year it came with many challenges, made us stronger as a Forza family, and we ended up having our best season to date. And we're hoping to make this year even better. Some important dates that I want to go over first. Our younger age groups will start Monday, November 1st. Our older age groups, our high school ages, will start November 29th. That's also a Monday. Our Thanksgiving break will be November 25th through the 28th. We'll also have these dates on our homepage, so you can look these up if we forget. Christmas and New Year's break will be December 20th through the 26th and the 31st and 1st of January. Spring break, all the teams will have a week off. That's a little bit to be determined once we get into the season. Different age groups will have little built-in breaks depending on the schedule, and we'll get those to you as soon as we have them and the schedules are complete. As far as COVID goes this season, last year brought a lot of challenges. The SCBA and USA volleyball policy is for no vaccine mandates and no proof of a negative test to play. We're currently expecting spectators. That policy could be fluid depending on how things are. Last year it started with no fans, and then it kind of grew as the season went on. I would expect us to start with full spectators, but again, this is going to be very fluid. Our policy will be fluid as well and change as the current climate changes. The roll-up doors on courts 2, 3, 4, and 5 will always be up, so we will have open air. And we encourage families to use the outdoor space. That was almost the entire season last year, where all families were outside. Although we're letting families inside, we do encourage you to use the outside space, especially if you're bringing your whole family. If there's siblings, we'll get more on that later. But if there's a lot of you, we do want to be conscious of how many people we have in the building. If your child is experiencing any symptoms, please keep them home. COVID exposure will not count against your child missing practices. We do use an advisory group of nurses and medical professionals that can help us with decisions regarding policy with COVID. Gym rules: no food or drinks, except for water. Gatorade can stain the floors, so we don't want Gatorade in the gym. So just water, please. No kids or parents on the turf. That's for players only. That's in the workout area. No parents on the court at any time. If your child is waiting for you to pick them up or they are early for practice, please make sure that they stay inside the facility for safety reasons. Please do not pick up your child in the back of the building. Use the exits or entrances on the north and east side of the building. Well, you don't want any children going out the back of the building. Please don't be late if your child is in the last practice of the day, because that forces a coach to stay with them until they get picked up. And for liability purposes, we want to avoid that. Some things are going to happen from time to time, but be aware if you're picking up your child and they're the last practice. Generally, that's going to be an 8 to 10. But for the younger age groups in November, before the high school age groups start, that's almost always a 4 to 6 practice. Some practices will be 6 to 8. Just be aware if they're the last team in there, try not to be late and keep the coach in the gym longer than they need to be. General communication. Please give us 24 hours if you're communicating with us. We want to get back to you as much as we can, and fortunately we have a good group of full-time staff that can get back to you and answer your questions. We do want to do that. We get busy. Give us a little bit of time because we're on the court so often. I just want to go over the staff so you know who to ask questions to, that they can answer those questions quickly. Austin is recruiting. He handles all the recruitment of our high school athletes. If you have any questions regarding recruitment, you can ask Austin. He can also answer any general volleyball questions. Taylor, she's our youth development director, volley prep, AVL, locals, tots. She can also answer any general volleyball questions. Sam is financial, uniforms, registration, travel. She is not volleyball. Don't ask her volleyball questions. She's extremely busy. She does a great job, extremely busy with what she does. It's a huge part of the club. She is not answering volleyball questions. So just kind of be conscious of that. It's okay to step in, say hi to her. She's really great with connecting with everybody. But if you're taking up time with volleyball questions, you're taking away from work that she has to do. And that's a huge part of the club is what she does. Jack Coberly, for injuries or coaches' issues. Chris Peterson is new to the club, will be our new boys director, so any boys questions can go to Chris. And for me, just overall issues, coaches' issues, player issues, lessons, any policies in the club. I'll always look busy. I'm on the court a lot. But I do want to hear from you. I do want to meet with you. One of the frustrating things for me and families is when a parent comes to me late in the season or after the season and says, I really had an issue here with a coach, or my child couldn't connect with the coach and there was these issues. And oftentimes when I'm hearing it, it's too late and I can't help and solve that problem, and I want to be able to do that. So if there's issues that can't be resolved early, please get to me and I will step in and handle that. How to communicate with the coaches. This is always important. First of all, respect their time on the court. So before or after practices, before or after tournaments, during the tournaments, is not the best time to talk to the coach. Our goal is always for the athlete to connect with the coach first. And when we have our coaches meetings and I'm talking with coaches, we're trying to make that communication come from the coach initially also. Coach to player communication is one where the coach is trying to invite, hey, talk to me, I'm going to give you feedback. So the players should have feedback. The players shouldn't know nothing about why they're playing or why they're not playing. There should be plenty of feedback given there. If there's not enough, if the player's confused, we want the player to communicate with the coach first. And if we're not getting through to the player, the coach isn't conveying that enough for the player to have a good understanding of what they need to do to increase their playing time or just improve, then we would invite some communication with the coach. But we have to be, being angry after a tournament or before the tournament is not a great time to talk to the coach. The coach isn't prepared for that. In fact, we communicate with our coaches to not engage in that. So it is very likely that the coach would just walk away from you because that's what they would be instructed to do rather than get in an argument with you at that time. That's not a healthy way to handle conflict, and it's not great for the athlete. The athlete's going to be embarrassed by that, and it kind of pits the player against the coach, which is really unhealthy. If there's still issues that we're having, please come to me and I will facilitate meetings with the players, parents, coaches, and we'll set a plan in place to make sure that we get everything handled as quickly as possible. Schedules. Coaches have a weekly schedule of practices. Those will change if, say, we have a tournament on a Saturday and the team practices on Saturday. Rather than just losing that practice, the practice will always be changed. Scrimmage will take place. So there can be some changes to your practice, but it's only going to be because of a tournament taking the place of that day. So just be aware of that. We don't have a lot of schedule changes that happen, but it can happen in certain cases. Sometimes coaches might add some practices. They should never be canceling practices. They wouldn't cancel those practices on their own. Something could come up where, for an emergency reason, a practice that needs to change, but the coaches should schedule another practice in its place. If there's a postponement of a tournament, this happened once last year, we will create a scrimmage. If something were to happen, especially COVID related, where a tournament was canceled, I don't anticipate that. Did happen once last year. And we created a scrimmage with some other local clubs to make sure we still had a competition in place there. Respect for the game. No yelling at refs or line judges or scorekeepers. I think this is really important. You're not helping the team as much as you think you are. If the score is wrong, and parents famously love yelling score, remember that the score, the flip, is not what's important. It very well could be wrong. What is on the score sheet, what's in the book, which you can't see, is the letter of the law. That's what they're going off of. So sometimes the person doing the flip or doing the score does it wrong. It happens. Try not screaming at them. You can try to get a hold of your coach. The coach can just look at the book and make sure that everything's good. The refs will help with that. But we want to keep the refs, line judges, and scorekeepers on our side, not against us. So just be respectful in that way. No yelling or talking poorly to players on either side. Be aware of your own side. If there's a serving error and we're talking about, missed serve or shank pass or bad set, those parents are there. Those kids can hear you a lot of times, and it creates a conflict between the kids now. So just be aware of that. Treat every kid like it's your kid. Try to be positive with everybody. It's just gonna increase the positivity and the support level of the teams, and that really does help the teams perform. If we have a lot of negativity, yelling, it's very likely if your kid is playing sports that they are somewhat competitive, which means that they probably have competitive parents. We understand that, but being negative is not a way to support. It's more often a way to break things down. So try to stay as positive as possible. I think it's important to try to learn a little bit about the game. That's a good way to get to know your coach, is maybe ask them questions about the game, or ask us full-time people questions about the game, look stuff up in the game, try to learn something about it. I find a lot of times where parents get frustrated is simply because they don't know enough about the game to not understand the rules of why something is happening. Why isn't my kid playing ever here? And it's a rotational issue, or it's a positional thing. There's positions, rotations, subbing rules, restrictions that you might not be aware of, that you think it's a knock on their playing time, and really it's the coach's handcuffed to how many subs they can do, or the limitations of who can sub in for who. So make sure you learn a little bit about the game. I remember once coaching high school, I had a parent that right at the end of the season was like, why, how come my daughter never starts? She didn't start all season. And she was an all-league kid. She was a middle that started in the back row, but as soon as they checked the rotation, the libero subs in, and the parent the whole season thought that her kid didn't start, and in fact she was starting every time. She was just starting in the back row. She was our best middle and was all league. But the parent was so frustrated all year simply because they didn't understand rotations. Playing time. Not every player is going to play every set. The higher the level of the team, the more focus we have on winning and competition and performance. Every coach is going to have a method for playing time. So if your kid doesn't play in a set, maybe they'll play in the next set. If they don't play in a match, maybe they'll play the whole next match. So try not to get frustrated. I've had parents pull kids after one match because their kid wasn't going to play, and the plan was for them to play like the next two matches. So every coach does it a little bit different. Some might want to sub or make switches every set. Some might want to do it every match. You have to respect how the coach's method for playing time is going to take place. The actual amount of time that your athlete is in a game is irrelevant. The volleyball it's not like basketball where there's 48 minutes and man, my kid only played 3. The timing of a game in volleyball, it's not by time. So you could be on the court in one rotation and a kid serves 20 balls and the game's almost over, and then your kid is out the next rotation. You're like, well, my kid never got in. Well, the game was over super fast. The time isn't always relevant to it. So try not put your stopwatches away. Try not to time it out. Some games, some sets, some matches, they're all gonna last longer or shorter depending on who's playing who. Well, missing practices will affect your playing time unless it's COVID related. Coaches may give you a chance to make up a practice with another team, but that should be on a limited basis. Maybe for some kids that have a 4 o'clock practice, schools get out late, they have a hard time getting there at 4, they're always a little bit late. The coach might recommend that you practice one practice a week with another team to kind of make up that time. So coaches can give you a way out so that you're not punished for missed practices, but if those practices start to add up, it's going to reflect in time that you miss on the court, and it should. Don't practice with another team to make up for misses just simply because you don't want to practice with your team. That actually came up last year, and we want to make sure that practicing with another team doesn't take the place necessarily of your practices just because you've missed a lot. Parent seating area, starting in November, no parents or siblings will be allowed in the weight room area. Even if we're not using the weight room in November and it's wide open, we just want to establish, start a practice, the correct seating areas. The only designated areas for families in the facility are the concrete areas at court 1 and 5. We encourage families to sit outside of the facility as we keep the bay doors open on 2, 3, and 4, and 5. If you bring siblings, we've talked about this earlier, to the facility, we highly recommend that you sit outside. We're still working in the offices. Sam's working in the offices. Off coaches are maybe working in the offices or doing film. And a lot of times siblings running around the facility or taking balls that might have rolled into the parent areas and bouncing them against the wall. Kids bounce the balls and they get stuck on the roof of the offices, and we have to get a ladder and get up there, and it's difficult to get them off. Just kind of understand that it's not a playground. Try to keep the siblings with you as a parent and not let them run around. Travel. National teams will be going to the Red Rock Rave qualifier, possibly, depending on the age, if they're older, going to the Vegas Classic. Junior Nationals or Festival or JVA West Coast Cup is an end of the year tournament. Our regional elite teams will play in the soiree for their end of the year tournament, and our locals teams will play in the AVL championship tournament. This is all I have for you today. I appreciate you listening. Really excited about the season. Go Forza.